Welcome back to the Fantasy Network, ladies and gentlemen. I am, of course, your host, Jimmy Nuts, also co-host of the Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast and YouTube channel as well as of this week, and it's official. We have settled in with our adult cast, and I think that for me, we got the best episode so far of the show, and I am very excited to come on here tonight live and talk to all of you about it. We're going to have a good time. Of course, I'll be taking chats, questions, and comments as usual. And it is great to see you all as I let some people file in here to the live stream. And for those watching after, I want to thank you. Remember to hit the like button and maybe drop a comment if you're watching this after the fact. It helps other people find it. And tonight, we're going to be drinking some wine. I'm not a big wine drinker, but this is the Pinot. Is that how you say it? Pinot. I know that's how you say it, but then I get like subconscious because I don't know anything about wines. But House of the Dragon wine tonight. And I'm going to let the chat decide. Should I pour it into this really cool Game of Thrones glass or should I drink from the bottle? I'll let you decide. Don't worry. I'm not going to like chug this. I'm a lightweight. Just want to have a taste of it and see how it is. How's everyone doing? How did we like the episode? What's up, Sean? Good to see you. Fantasy Fanatic is here. Mitch is here. Heir to the Monado, which is awesome. Good afternoon, Jimmy. This episode and episode 4 are my favorite so far. Yeah, that's how I feel too. I think this is one tops 4 for me. So what's up, Ryan? Whoa. StreamYard was struggling and just threw in like 20 comments. That was overwhelming. Yeah, I'm glad I did some jiu-jitsu tonight. Got out all of my stress and energy, and now I just kind of get to relax with all of you and talk about episode 7, which is awesome. What's up, Omar? Good to see you, my friend. Oso, what's up? Books of Bang Constant's best episode of TV I've seen in years. Yeah, I would think other than like Better Call Saul and Succession, like this has to be up there, you know? Yes. Birdie in the books says, my only complaint is that the episode was a little too dark in certain points, but I know that was on purpose. Yeah, it sounds like some people had issues with the picture. That's a shame. It is kind of bewildering that they decided to shoot that way again for a certain, kind of television set with certain settings. I have a ridiculous OLED. I have the LG G2 and it's calibrated. So I didn't have any issues, but when it happened, I said, oh yeah, people are going to be mad about this. I knew that the darkness of the scene would matter, but I felt like I didn't necessarily need to see every detail in those scenes. I was able to see enough of it to see those details, but I can't say for sure. So, I mean, if people are saying they couldn't see it, they couldn't see it. It's not like they're making it up. Right. But it is unfortunate that some viewers were not able to see as well as others, depending on settings and television set and whatnot. So I've always been pretty particular when it comes to my televisions and calibrations. I'm a bit of a home theater nerd, or at least I was. So my stuff's dialed in pretty well. So I didn't have any issues with it. Germ D says, I look forward to the stream all week. Nuts at night. Nuts at night. I like it. Germ, if I hit it big with that name, I'll send you a royalty check. So much awesome one episode. Yeah. Zod says, it's so refreshing watching good writing. Yeah. That's like one thing that this, like, I've really not had to worry about it. I think in the first, I'm pouring this, sounds wonderful. Can you hear that? It just sounds great. That is one thing since getting back into Westeros. Like I thought like at the beginning, it was a little bit jarring because I haven't really watched any TV since like Game of Thrones, other than a couple episodes of Succession and some other stuff. But like getting back in, it was like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like this is how people talk in this universe. I haven't really had to worry about the writing. And I thought the writing and the acting was absolutely superb for episode 7, even more so than the other ones, I would say. Super Gainsborough, that's the other co-host of Bend the Knee, Matt, says, I had no problem seeing it, but I can see why people would have issues. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. It's like people weren't making it up, right? So it's unfortunate. I really wish they would think about that stuff, especially with the reception. It makes you feel like they're a little bit tone deaf, which That tracks. Billionaires running companies being out of touch. Yeah, that sounds about right. So yeah, Bryce, you're right. They did shoot this episode during the day and then put a film over it to make it look like night. So it makes it even a little bit more perplexing. Let's try this House of the Dragon wine. Let's see from my non-wine knowing taste buds. Oh yes, it really brings out the aromatic flavor. I don't know. It tastes okay. It tastes like diesel, like everything with alcohol in it. Oso says, I like it, but I can understand some of the critiques about time jumps and character deaths lacking a punch, but I need to see the whole season to make any sort of proper judgment. I think it just also you have to accept what kind of story this is. This is not Game of Thrones. This is a historical leaping forward epic, right? We're going to settle down. Like next episode is pretty much the last major time jump. We might have like a 4 or 6 months somewhere down the line. Maybe they'll do something crazy. I don't know. But this is the last big one. We're aging up the actors, and then we're going to be with these characters for seasons, which is great. And it's only the kids that are getting aged up, as far as I know, for the next episode. So I think like that jarringness is over. We got over those hurdles, and it's great. I'm very curious to see if viewership grew or shrank this week. I predicted that it would go down this week because of the time jump and because of the big NFL game. If it goes up even after that, like if it goes up again this week, I give up. I guess it's just a massive success. I mean, it's already a massive success, but that would exceed even the highest expectations from a fanboy like me. So I simply fixed the issue of unhealthy staring 2 feet from my monitor. Nuts at night since you are a hedge knight. That's right. That's right. Mitch says, very symbolic knife strike from Alicent. It was heavy with symbolism. Yes. With Lord of the Rings, it's like night and day with the writing. Yeah, I've had issues not feeling like there was just a massive lump of cheese on the screen at times with Rings of Power, but I'm going to give it more of a fair shake whenever I get to the end of that season. I'm going to binge it and try to give it its fair due. But we're talking about House of the Dragon tonight, so is that amber shit they drink in Pentos? That's pretty good. Yeah, a lot of tense moments in this episode without leaving Driftmark. Like, you know, it had that almost claustrophobic feel to it. And like the beach scene, yeah, they're out there. I don't know. It felt very tight-knit. And I thought one of the coolest things about this episode is whenever the funeral was happening, it was very awkward. This is something Matt said on Bend the Knee. It's just like funerals are awkward. Like they actually represented funerals pretty well in the wide array of emotions that get displayed at them. But also like the dragons circling in the clouds above, and at the end of the funeral and all of the awkwardness, like the dragons are starting to roar, and it just kind of symbolizes like what's about to go down with the kids in the big room scene. So pretty cool. Jason Brewbreaker says the children are just really killing it for me. The confrontation scene in the main hall was just epic. Yeah, to get that many kid actors on the same page and for all of them to deliver was quite impressive. I saw an interview with Aemond and the actor that plays Aemon, and I'm so shocked by how he was in the interview because he's nothing like the character in the show. Now, obviously, he's acting, James, but to see such a different side of that actor not in the show, I don't know. It's just really impressive what that kid actor was able to do. And hopefully there's more things coming for him. You know, we are going to age up, so we're going to have a whole nother cast representing these kids in the time jump. So yeah, Fantasy Fanatic, I agree. Says, can't wait for Aemon time jump. Osferth from Last Kingdom. Let's go. Last Kingdom's a great show. The man himself. What's up, Christian? How's it going down there? I do not know the name of the next episode. I'm sure someone else will put it in chat, though, for sure. So much was said without words. Yeah, I think a lot of the best moments in House of the Dragon thus far have been some of the facial expressions and the silent acting. I mean, we got that amazing scene in episode 3 with Matt. I almost said Matt Damon. I meant Matt Smith. Matt Smith taking on an army by himself, right? But he didn't speak that whole 10 minutes and still was able to say a lot, if you know what I mean. So really, really great. Does anyone else feel like much of the casual fan base for the show is becoming? Yeah, I'm going to touch on that a little bit, Philip, here in a bit, just to actually kind of gauge how y'all feel. because you guys show up every single week, and I know you guys are really into the show, so I'm very curious what will happen. Does anyone think Lord Storm reminds you of Game of Thrones version of Glocta? Absolutely. Absolutely. House of the Dragon turned into hot D for Daemon and Rhaenyra this episode. A long time coming, it seems. Yeah, Matt. Yeah, the kid who plays Aegon, is David Tennant's son. Another Doctor Who connection. I mean, we're gonna get the crossover here soon. Doctor Who's gonna end up in River Run. You would think missing an eye would mess with depth perception pretty bad when writing Big Nanny Vhagar. Well, I guess we'll see right after this episode if he makes any wrong turns. Derry says the funeral being spoken in High Valyrian meant that all those digs about true blood were so deliberately pointed at those who speak it. Rhaenyra, Viserys, and Daemon. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of nonverbal stuff in this show has mattered, and it's been pretty excellent. Vhagar was awesome this episode. Still a Noodle Boy stand, though. Hey, we can like all of the dragons, okay? And I do want to... Man, this wine is not that great. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's fine, but it's not great. I do want to start off this stream kind of talking about this scene here. Did anyone else think that this was really, really heartbreaking? For multiple reasons. One, Viserys, obviously on death's door, has been there for about a decade, trying to make amends with Daemon at the funeral. And this is something that happens at funerals, right? People want bygones be bygones, and doesn't always end up that way. And Daemon giving him kind of the cold shoulder, really brutal. But at the same time, do we remember Viserys holding down Daemon, in the throne room and exiling him? Like, that isn't for free. But this snub was brutal, and it's mainly because these two together on screen is some of my favorite. I believe that they're brothers, and I am aware that they're actors in other shows. But man, has Paddy Considine not been the biggest surprise for me? I was a little nervous when he got cast as Viserys because I recognized him from The Outsider, that Stephen King adaptation. It was on HBO that everybody hated. And I'm like, I just don't see him being a Targaryen king. And I was so wrong. So very wrong. But I thought this scene really, really captivated me and kind of carried me through the first part of the episode. And I just kept thinking about it. Yeah, I agree. Every time the brothers have a scene together, it's gold. I mean, Matt Damon has elevated everyone he's been in a scene with, I think, but these two specifically are just two heavyweights. Paddy Considine is a straight up G. Yes, Viserys wants to connect with his bro. Why snub him? Well, I imagine Daemon is a little pissed off still. And maybe in some ways, think about this. So Laena died. And I know that Daemon seems kind of cold, but like, I think it's fairly certain that Daemon at least cared for her at some point. I don't know if he was madly in love with Laena, but if he had not been exiled, there is a chance that Laena doesn't die. Right. And Laena being like a consolation prize to kind of keep Daemon in the game when it comes to being in the succession, right? Like he's dropped, but he kind of grasped the last straw he could just to remain in the picture. So, like, in some ways, I think that he probably blames Viserys a little bit for this situation. And then on top of that, he's still probably really bitter that he didn't let him marry Rhaenyra, right? So, it was weird. At first, I was really mad at Daemon. And then, like, I sat there and thought about him, like, yeah, I don't know if I would not be also a spiteful bastard in this circumstance. So, it's a great scene, just an absolute great scene. It poses a lot of questions and really just solidifies the fact that their relationship is extraordinarily messy, like every relationship in the show. I'm not sure actually how old Daemon and Viserys are supposed to be at this point. I want to say in their 50s, but I'm sure someone in the chat can correct me on that. Bryce says, seeing Daemon and Viserys reunion was heartbreaking yet hilarious at the same time. As soon as he approached him, I was like, this isn't going to go well. Yeah, the gods have been especially cruel to you. That cut him like the Iron Throne, right? Daemon acting like Viserys was in the wrong all those times he got benched. Fair point, Philip. Could have been some reconciliation. Daemon needs to be wanted. Yeah, for sure. And you have to remember, Daemon's idea is that Viserys is weak and is not just weakening himself, but he's weakening the Targaryens. And that's what Daemon is all about. Daemon is about solidifying the dynasty of the Targaryens. He's obsessed with Valyria, as is Viserys in a way. So, yeah, Patty's incredible. Matt Damon error count. Did I say Matt Damon again? Damn it. I can't even blame the wine. I haven't even drank this much. So it turns out, guys, I'm just dumb. Yeah, Mr. Panther brings up a good point. Imagine how pissed Viserys. We're going to get another scene like this, but I think it's going to go way worse for Daemon because Rhaenyra and Daemon got married at the end of this episode, which, by the way, making the kids attend this marriage after their mom just died is pretty rough, Daemon. I don't know if that was the greatest move by a father I've ever seen. But you know, that wedding is going to be a point of contention because that absolutely was not blessed by Viserys. So it's very, very interesting. And I'm excited to see how awful that turns out for everyone. Jamie is watching from work. Thank you. Appreciate you tuning in. Says, don't even know where to start. Some way they find a way to increase the tension every time. Yeah, they're really pulling it together. Matt Damon, everybody. Tony says, thanks for doing these weekly live streams. Hey, I appreciate you guys showing up. These are not the most popular things I do on my channel, and I'm sure there are people who are getting annoyed with me for doing them weekly. But, you know, I've still been reviewing books. I've been doing all my normal content. So I don't think there's any harm in doing this. And honestly, you had to expect I was going to do this kind of thing. I mean, it's my favorite book series of all time. We're lucky to get a second adaptation, and I'm just excited to be here. So even though these are not the most popular things on my channel, I'm just excited to be doing them and have you guys here, and I appreciate it. Also, I get a lot of really great input from y'all. The chat is excellent. Oh, you haven't missed much at all. The subtext and the gods have been especially cruel to you, and that you've turned your back on Targaryen. You deserve it. Mm-hmm. But are we going to get more scenes of Viserys violently cutting his chicken? I don't know if you mean that metaphorically or not. Yeah, only 3 episodes left. Rough. Never stop, Jimmy. I love these streams. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate it a lot. Sometimes it's very easy to get down on yourself as somebody does YouTube or content creation. So the compliments and you know, even feedback, constructive feedback is always welcome. And I really appreciate it because I put a lot of time and effort into this stuff. And, you know, it's also awesome because I get to come in here after doing like the raw reaction on Bend the Knee. So like I get out all my Markisms, you know, on Sunday night. And then I get to kind of settle down and see, you know, what you guys are thinking too. So it's a great 2-punch combo. And I'm really, really love doing Bend the Knee with Matt. And I'm really excited about that project taking off for me. So it's pretty amazing. How are the dragons flying at the same speed as the ships? Need a lore reason. Well, Mitch, so I totally understand and agree with you, but I think the dragons are probably holding back. Like, I don't think that they're just like beelining, right? They're probably restricting themselves a little bit. Which I got some more dragon stuff to talk about probably after I kind of go through some of the beats of the episode here. Interesting that Viserys is not in the trailer for next week. I still haven't watched the trailer. I don't usually. I kind of get told what's in it from people, which is fine. But I usually don't watch it myself just because I'm weird. And like, even though I have read the books, I still want to see what is coming. But can we talk about Vhagar? Guys. Sick. Just absolutely ridiculous. Like I saw some people were a little iffy on the CGI in episode 1. I'm not a CGI critiquer because like I don't know anything about CGI. I'm not going to pretend to, and I don't like rehash. Like I see people like reviewers on YouTube who probably know what they're talking about say it, but I don't like regurgitating those points if I don't actually have a fundamental understanding of the technology, and I don't. But what I will say is I would assume that most people think the Vhagar in this CGI looks great because I was fooled. I felt like I could feel the dragon breathing on me. And just the little things like the dragon breathing out, Aemon's hair blowing back. And I was a little nervous with this scene because I was like, man, if they do this wrong, this is going to feel like a terrible Percy Jackson movie. Like whenever he rides Vhagar. Turns out they nailed it. And they actually gave me a sense of wonder whenever Aemon was riding. Like I was bought in and I was happy for this kid. I was really, really happy. And I just thought the whole shot panning over the water. Everything was just beautiful. And this whole episode was pretty damn good, wasn't it? As far as like shots go, I mean, I know we're all very happy with the episode in general, but I mean, some of the best shots, in my opinion, came from this episode. Panther, you don't have to apologize at all. I had an idea of some of the stuff that was in the thing. I wasn't trying to say don't tell me. You're totally fine. You're good. Even like knowing what's coming, because I've read Fire and Blood, right? But even people tell me, I don't mind. I just don't want to see it visually until Sunday. So don't apologize. You're totally fine. Fantasy Fanatic says it was cool to see Criston Cole refuse to take the kid's eye out. Yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it? Because, you know, it took me back to whenever he called Rhaenyra not such a nice word last episode. And we had Alicent say, hey, remember, we're the honorable ones. Like, we stick to our honor no matter what. And then fast forward a couple years, and you have Alicent threatening to take a kid's eye out. And then Criston Cole's the one being like, no, I'm here to protect you. I'm not here to gouge out kids' eyes. So there is an interesting dynamic there, and I wonder how they're going to play with that as we go on, because Criston Cole obviously has a role to play coming up, but I wonder if we'll see him get pushed to his limits when it comes to his morals. Struggling to put together sentences tonight. Yeah, Godzilla wings. Yeah, it reminded me of Godzilla as well. I loved it. It looks like I got me a new screensaver. I love it. Yeah, Vhagar is the most badass. And I think Vhagar is the third biggest dragon, I believe. Meraxes is number 2, right? I might be wrong. But I think it's Meraxes, then Vhagar. Obviously, Black Dread's number 1. Where does the Pink Dread fall? Derry says, I like the energy of the immediate bend the knee post episode. Love that. Once you've sat with it for a bit, you get a calmer look too. Yeah, and you pick up on things and you think about what sat with you and resonated with you. I usually rewatch the episode. I did not get to rewatch this one. I usually throw it on during work, but I've had a pretty busy week, so I haven't been able to, unfortunately. And it seems like a lot of people enjoyed the Vhagar scenes, which is awesome. Ben didn't like the kids movie hanging off the ropes. That was a moment where I was like, it was teetering for me, but I really liked the cut to the hands grabbing the saddle. I don't know why. I just liked it. He does a good chin up, good form. Yeah, one of the coolest scenes. Aemon's got some balls. Yeah, Aemon came out of this looking like a rock star, huh? And delivering the line, obviously, when all the tension is going down with the family, that I may have lost an eye, but we've gained a dragon. It's okay. And then Otto coming in and finally giving his actual intentions, like flat out, was pretty crazy. And him being like, the boy was right. Like, we got a dragon. We got the nuke. We got the biggest nuke. So that's going to be pretty damn interesting to see Aemon as an adult. And I think the actor is going to do a wonderful job. I'm going to miss these young guys, though. They did a good job. The kids fight scene is another scene. Could have went really poorly. But, man, they nailed it. They really nailed it. Also, the strong boys did not look too strong, did they? They were getting They were getting absolutely titty scrubbed. They got haymakers left and right. They did not work well as a unit. Harwin would have been very disappointed. Rest in peace. Or Laenor, whichever side you really want to believe. It was funny watching Aemon get high off the Dragon Rush. Great fast-paced character development. Yeah, you didn't need a lot of time on that, huh? What do you think about Westerling's look at Cole after he refused to take the eye out? Yeah, well, I thought that was interesting because Alicent said, you're sworn to me. And they're like, wait, what? We're sworn to protect the king. What is this? Like, that's kind of like, I think, the first peek behind the curtain for the rest of the Kingsguard. And that's another really important piece, right? We got to think about these little things as we go forward, and the lines are going to be drawn in the sand. Was what happened with Laenor consistent with the books? No. And I will bring that up in just a second, because I'm going to talk about that and Sea Smoke. Can we talk about the fact that Aemon clocks one of Daemon's daughters? Yeah, I think my wife was like, oh, okay. Like, whoa, buddy. Kids fight scene, and I think it's because I'm just reading it right now, gave me big It vibes, right? I'm reading it by Stephen King for the month of October. A bunch of people in the Discord are reading it as well. And it gave me major It vibes, which was cool. What other fantasy series do you want to see HBO adapt? Live Ship Traders Trilogy by Robin Hobb. With the exception of the eye loss, that fight gave me flashbacks to fighting with my cousins when we were kids. Yeah, fair. Yeah, I remember, it didn't matter if you were a girl cousin or boy cousin, you were getting clocked, right? That's how it was when you were like 4 and 5. It didn't matter. So let's talk about Laenor, because Mitch asked a question, and in Fire and Blood, Laenor is killed, and it is presumed that Carl did it, just as it's presumed in the show. However, this happens, and Corlys loses his mind. Corlys starts offering a large amount of money for people to bring Carl to him, but he's never seen again. Okay, so that's kind of how it goes. I've seen some people argue that this is not a change and that it's still consistent with the books. But if we're being honest, I feel pretty comfortable calling this a change. And also, I need to state this just for the obvious, because if I don't, someone's going to take it the wrong way. Change doesn't mean that it's bad at all, right? So I feel as if this is one of the better changes that could come from the book. And the biggest difference is that Laenor is not burned in the book. So there is no chance of that happening in the book. Now, you could leave it up and say, well, it says he was killed, but like maybe he was. Okay, like I guess we can play that game. But like in the show, we see that he is burned, and it is the guy that Daemon slit the throat of right before, and that is how he is able to get away. So that is a change, and I like it. I thought it was pretty good. Kev Deshup said, no, I was playing iRace and didn't realize what time it was. Well, welcome to the stream, my friend. So now this leaves a really big question, and this is one that I've seen posted online and a lot of people going back and forth, and I think some people are misguided on this, so I'm going to try to set the record straight a little bit here, okay? The question becomes, Laenor leaves. What happens to Sea Smoke? Now, there are some things, and please do not mention them in chat if you know, that happened with Sea Smoke, because obviously Laenor does die in the book at this moment, but it's under different circumstances. He's not alive, right? So Sea Smoke will be in the story. At least he is in the books. Is it Sea Smoke, he or she? Someone tell me in the chat. Sea Smoke will be alive in the show, most likely. Or I should say included, because obviously he's still alive. So Sea Smoke, there's a question about this. And I've seen some people say this is a mess. If Laenor isn't dead, then there's no way that someone else can bond Sea Smoke. That's not how the dragons work. We know that for a fact. That's not true. That is not the case at all. And I would challenge anyone who feels this way to provide me the text from the books, from the source material, that says this is exactly how bonding works, and this is the complete blueprint. And I would counter you with a passage from The Princess and the Queen, which is then put into Fire and Blood and all this other stuff. And this is a quote about dragon binding. We shall not pretend to any understanding of the bond between dragons and dragon riders. Wiser heads have pondered that mystery for centuries. We do know, however, that dragons are not horses to be ridden by any man who throws a saddle on their back. So what happens when people read this is they read it one way, and they say, oh, dragons are not like horses to have a saddle thrown on their back. So that means that they have to be bonded from birth. That's the only way. You put the egg in the cradle, blah, 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 blah. That's one way of reading that sentence. But I read this sentence as it's either or. So, yeah, you might not be able to throw a saddle on the back, but we can't say for sure that it's some blood bonding, telepathic bonding. We have no idea exactly how this works. And the Targaryens have forgot a lot about Valyria at this point. They have forgot a lot of Valyrian. There's only a few people that speak it in the show, and they have lost the ability to bond with the dragons. This is actually seen with Dany in the books, with Drogon and the other dragons, because Drogon and her are not bonded. She does not have control over the dragon. Certainly not like the dragon riders that we see in the histories. So bonding is a loose and fast thing. And some people say, well, if that's the case, then I don't like it because George is just doing the hand-wavy magic stuff. George has always said that magic is to remain ambiguous. He is very polar opposite of a hard magic system with everything explained. He likes lore and history. But, for instance, Melisandre, explain Melisandre with factual text, I should say factual, with backup from the text. You're not going to be able to do it because we don't know. We simply do not understand. We know we have pieces, right? Like we know blood is important, blood magic. We have the werewoods. Exactly how does that network work? We have warging, and there seems to be some loose and fast rules with that. And it's meant to remain ambiguous. Did I just get spoiled something from Big from the... No, I don't think so. If you read book, no, not at all. No, and you've read book 1, so you know that there are dragons with Dany, right? So, but my point is that bonding with a dragon is not some set in stone thing, and there's just so many people repeating this online. I see it in forums and everything. Sea smoke, they're going to ruin it. Like, 1, we haven't seen what they're going to do yet. And 2, these rules are not set in stone. So we need to take a step back and just realize that until someone can show an example of this is exactly how this works, which it doesn't exist, there might be hints and everything, but there's no set rules to this because that's not how George operates when it comes to the fantastical elements of the series. We can relax a little bit and be excited to see what happens with Sea Smoke and where Sea Smoke ends up. So I just wanted to bring that up because I've seen a lot of discussion. Some people, are just curious, like, how does that work? How does the bond happen? Well, the answer is, according to Fire and Blood and Princess and the Queen, which ends up in Fire and Blood, that we don't know, that it's a little bit loose and fast. We cannot pretend. What does it say? We shall not pretend to any understanding of the bond between dragon and dragon rider. And as viewers, if we can't either. So I think we can just relax a little bit on worrying exactly how that's going to end up. George is definitely a little loose on this stuff. And that's part of the reason why I like the series, because we get to speculate. So that was a long rant. My apologies. So what else? What else we got from the episode that was pretty amazing? Vhagar was sweet. The kids fighting scene was amazing. How about when Alicent is holding the dagger and now we see you for what you are? Woo, boy. Probably the best moment so far, I think, in the season. I'd be curious if other people would agree with me. I thought that was better than any of the action scenes, any of the dragon scenes, anything. Was that moment, and then getting away and it's slicing Rhaenyra, and then the glyphs on the Valyrian dagger, showing that this is bigger than just their petty. Oh, my camera unfocused. Bigger than some petty family argument. It's a lot bigger than that. Yeah, that whole scene was amazing for sure. I had another still here I wanted to share to give everyone a little bit of a flashback to season 8. And the kid says, "I don't want it," and everyone just groans audibly. But for him to say after, and this is the line I'll remember, is the fact that he says, "If I own Driftmark, that means everybody is dead." And it's one of those things where, like, sometimes a kid can cut through all of the smoke and mirrors and all the bullshit, and they just say what they're thinking, and it is the most true statement that could be uttered because they do not have any, like, idea of, well, we got to be polite about these things. Like, it's just the bluntness of it. I thought that was incredible. And I almost wonder if they were like, let's say I don't want it, and then follow with a bigger line and just show that, like, we're over that hump. Probably not. They probably, again, were just a little bit tone deaf to know that is a very triggering quote from season 8. Or mayhaps not. Oh, another small one is when Viserys calls Alicent Emma. Was rough. Like, even though a lot of people hate Alicent, I felt bad for her in that moment, and also kind of bad for Viserys for making an ass of himself. How hard was it all these years hiding behind your own righteousness? Get 'em. Yes, the truth from the mouth of babes. I loved it. I noticed the guards holding Daemon back during the Queen's standoff. Shouldn't they focus more on pulling them apart and start being people from breaking it up? I think everyone that is within the King's reach believes that Daemon is a threat and an X factor, and they do not want him being involved in anything. I think it also kind of showed in episode 5 too, like where we had the wedding. Damon, as soon as he gets on the floor, everything kind of goes to shit, whether it's his fault or not. And he was definitely doing a little edgelord leaning this episode, just kind of watching from the distance, same as Otto Hightower, which I think puts them on polar opposite sides, which makes sense from what we've been given on screen, and pretty amazing. Yeah, the fact that Otto Hightower is going to get a lot more lines in the show is a good thing, because I think that actor is just waiting to like blow the roof off that role. And we've kind of been slow rolled into Otto. Like at first, like we're basically told like this guy's a snake. And then like there's a little bit of a moment where you're like, well, is he though? Like, is he really? And he gets sent away and now he's back. And I think it's really going to start to become more and more evident his motivations. And we see that whenever he has a conversation with Alicent, it's like, hey, I didn't realize that you were ready to play the game. This is great for us. Let's go. Like if you're in, you're in. And this is the moment he sees where all of us go, what a dummy. He says, okay, I can play with this. I think he is dead set on a civil war. And he's also looking at the fact that they just secured the biggest dragon that is alive today in Vhagar. And she is going to be a weapon of mass destruction for them, essentially. So also, I've seen people say, Alicent should have been arrested, hung, or whatever, sent to the law. I don't know. But one, she's a queen. Two, I would also say that it's just more of an example of how weak Viserys is and how he's trying, even though he's showing favoritism towards Rhaenyra at some points, or like, I mean, it's clear he favors her. He's still trying to keep the peace as best as he can. And yeah, I feel bad for Viserys, who's worked so hard for unity and it's all gone to shit. Yeah. Yeah. It's rough. Very, very rough. Aha. Pesci says, I thought Damon moved to keep Cole out of it. Yeah, that looked like his intention for sure. And, he probably doesn't know what Cole's going to do. I also wonder if Damon has any idea about, and I don't think we've had this in the show. Do you think Damon has any idea that Criston Cole and Rhaenyra slept together? And if he doesn't, do you think it's going to come into play down the road? Like, do you think that could be a major like rift possibly between Damon and Rhaenyra? Yeah. I think Rhaenyra and Daemon ending up together was actually executed pretty well. I mean, obviously it's incest, so it's a little bit weird, but I thought it was executed rather well. The quote of the episode for me was when Rhaenyra says, "We were born to burn together." Whew. Whew. It's all subtext, but great use of it through writing and acting. Yeah, and I know the show has moved very quickly. I thought this episode was really well paced. Even the ending, like with Laenor, I was actually totally fine with how they executed that. But they still have they've done a pretty good job of letting things like marinate whenever things are just kind of silent. A lot of times shows skip that or they time it wrong. I think of the Wheel of Time, when the Wheel of Time, whenever Moraine walks into the inn, she like busts in and it's like silent. Everyone's like kind of staring at her. I couldn't help but start laughing. And you're not supposed to laugh at that. And I was just like, this is so awkward. Like, this is not like, if it had been intended to be funny, it would have worked. So you can really mess up some of the more subtle scenes that you're trying to go for, or, kind of like a mood setting scene. And House of the Dragon's done a pretty good job, even with a very fast pace of cashing out on those opportunities. Yeah. Bryce says, I need a scene with Otto and Laris just talking. Honestly, anytime Laris speaks, I'm completely glued to my screen. Do you think there would have been an alternate version of the dance if Viserys married Laena? Possibly. I feel like Rhaenys would have been offended that her. Yeah, I don't know. It's good, fun. What if, right? Yeah, the blatant honesty of Aegon. We all know it. Look at them. Yeah, Aegon had very little to do this episode. Last week he was ringing the bells, if you know what I mean, out the window. But this time he just got a little drunk and Otto had to kick him in the ass and tell him to get to bed, which was kind of funny. But Aegon in that moment, when Viserys stares him down and he's just like, everyone knows, kind of like, but you, Viserys, like you refuse to face this conflict. What a scene. And the camera pans over and you see Rhaenyra with the boys, and then Corlys is right behind, and there's like a direct comparison, and you're like, yeah, that's clearly not Laenor's kids. Like, clearly. Why is Rhaenyra still calling Daemon uncle? I'm gonna be calling him daddy here in a minute. Too far? Too far. Okay. Yes. Aemon was ringing those bells last episode. I am sad to see the Tenant kid go, just to see Aegon go, because I just think that kid has such a good villain face, honestly. And I'm sure the adult actor is going to be great. I saw a picture, a still Matt showed me. Oh my goodness. Going to be hateable for sure. Can we talk about the person who is one also had very little to do for this episode, very few lines, but was maybe the most affected by all of the events, and I thought did such a tremendous job of acting, and that is the actress playing Rhaenys. I thought, I always say Rhaenys. Some people say Rhaenys. I'm going to say Rhaenys. Rhaenys, I lied to you. Rhaenys is outstanding in the show. Her and Corlys's dynamic on screen, like their chemistry has worked so well, whether they're joking, whether they're happy, whether they're scheming, or whether they're mad at each other. When they're sitting next to the fire, I thought that scene was captivating. I thought it felt very, very real for parents who have been stuck in such a terrible situation. And then for Laenor to fake his death and then move on is so gut-wrenching for this character. And a lot of people say, hey, Laenor's an asshole too, because, he gets his happy ending, but what about his poor mother? And this is pretty consistent with Fire and Blood in the sense, not in those events, but in the fact that I always felt like Rhaenys was always slighted in the most badass character. Like, I love this character in the book. I love this character in the show. And it is such a disservice. And it pisses me off how she is treated in all of these events and how she is kind of cast aside for Viserys, all the things. She's just absolutely phenomenal as a character. And I feel so much sympathy. So much sympathy for her. Rhaenys is consistently excellent, and I like that we saw some range from her this episode. Grief. Yeah, exactly. I agree 100%. I feel like Rhaenys and Corlys totally pull off marriage. Like, I see them and 100% convinced. Yeah, and let's give it up for the entire cast, really. But the Valerians are amazing. Such a good family, and also just like that's how I picture them when I'm reading Fire and Blood and catching up for the episode. That's how I picture them now, which is really cool. Yeah, Titanic was a gift. A good villain face is the worst compliment. Kev, you have a villain face, my friend. How's it going, CC? Yeah, Rhaenys got the shaft more than Rhaenyra did the episode. Yeah, I mean, one of the most it's such an injustice to this poor character. And these poor kids are now here. And like, what is going to happen with them? And I'm looking forward to seeing them be brought to the forefront a little bit more and seeing some things get fleshed out that we have to be very, very excited about. But this is like a moment. It's so interesting because Laena dies, and everything that happens around her death will now shape things that come in the dance. And I feel like Laena gets forgotten. And even her short time in the show, I know I felt like episode 6 was a bit rushed, but I can still feel her shadow of her impact on the series and definitely in the book. So pretty good episode. I really, really enjoyed the funeral as well. Mitch says, was the idea episode before last that Laenor's sister was going to die from childbirth? Anyways, forgot to ask about that last week. So Laenor's sister, which is Laena, in the book, she delivers the child, falls with fever, and tries to crawl to Vhagar, cannot make it because she knows she's going to die. And they put her back in bed, and then she dies, which is brutal. I said the reason why I believe that they did the childbirth is so that they could show a direct correlation between Viserys and Daemon in the situation, but also to show someone actually getting agency in how their life ends. She was 100% going to die from the C-section. I think that's pretty obvious. And she chose the way to go out. So people feel differently about it. I understand. But for me, it was all about what it symbolized and agency and the getting of a choice. Getting that choice is very important. And I think the show was trying to say something there. And I'll let you all put it together. So I do feel like I need to say that the sex scene between Daemon and Rhaenyra could have been more passionate. These people have waited for this for years. Well, it's a little chilly on the beach, maybe a little nervous, perhaps. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I didn't look into it too much. I knew it was happening, but I was more excited to see what was happening with Aemon, to be honest. So, Kev says Rhaenyra grabbed Daemon's ass. All right. That's as passionate as it gets. All right. So, the last thing I kind of want to talk about with this episode is the fact that there is a lot of talk about blacks versus greens, Alicent, Rhaenyra. Some people are saying everyone's terrible in this show. And I would probably fall into that category. I think there's a lot of wrongdoers here. But on the flip side of that, you are allowed to cheer for people who are doing terrible things in television shows. I do enjoy looking at thematic value, empathy, all of these things, right? And trying to judge it with a neutral eye is a lot of fun. But it's getting to a point online where it's like people are making judgment on people's characters if they side with Alicent. It's like some people just want to be antagonists. Some people just want to cheer for the other side. And maybe they really do see a point with them. But I don't know. I think, and it's not no one in this chat, obviously. But someone mentioned, I think it was Philip mentioned it earlier about how so many people are getting tribal with this. And to me, it's all in good fun. It's kind of like rooting for sports teams. If you root for Tom Brady, you're a good for nothing. It's kind of like that. But unfortunately, when a show handles very serious themes like this one does and has some really traumatizing events, I think people, justifiably kind of attach some of themselves to that, especially if they can relate to any of it. But what I would say is that we all have to kind of take a deep breath and realize that the tribalism should, for the most part, just be for fun. It's a television show. Okay. I don't think you should judge people's characters based on their opinions about a fictional television show and what side they pick. That's all I'm saying. Also, I don't feel, I joke around and say I'm team black, because it is fun to throw caution to the wind and play the game. Right? You're at a sports game. If you've ever been forced to go to a sporting event, by the end, you're kind of cheering for one side just for the fun of it. Or you switch sides because you start cheering for the underdog. I've done that before. Seen my wife do that. We'll be watching UFC and she'll be like, that guy seems like a douche. And then he'll start getting beat up and she'll be like, I kind of want him to win now. And it's because it's the natural feeling of cheering for the underdog. And I think some people felt like Alicent was an underdog the first half of this season. And now that she is being cast in a lot more of a defined role of, you maybe say a villain, right? She's at least doing some evil things or bad things that we could say. They feel like they've been duped a little bit and they don't want to cheer for Rhaenyra because they can't let go of certain things that Rhaenyra has done. And it leaves them in a weird spot. But I do think that there's a place in this show and in the fandom to just watch and assess everything as it comes. I don't feel the need to pick a side. I'm team black, right? I'm on Rhaenyra's side, but not so hard to where I think that people who cheer for the greens are sociopaths. I don't see that. It's real to me, damn it. I've always been on Team Storm. Well, see, this is the problem. There's someone out there that is mad at you right now. Sivo Reb says, haven't watched the show. Haven't even watched the show. Just get updates from Jimmy. Well, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here. Philip says, I'm cool with picking sides. Book readers did this, but seems like people are brushing over the faults of their favorites and emphasizing the faults of their own. Almost all of them are bad. Yeah, all of them are bad. And it's okay not to root for anybody, or it's okay to root for somebody. I see people wondering if Rhaenyra is being whitewashed. I think you would have to be pretty dense to think that. Rhaenyra 100% has been in the wrong at times. Even this past episode, I don't think she handled things very well. Especially when it comes to the idea of how do you frame this to the children that Daemon still has, and you're marrying their father. Like, there's a lot of rough stuff here, and it's not all going to be spelled out. And I think people want the show to be like, Rhaenyra is also evil. And it's like, you're not going to get that. That would be a mistake. In the wrestling business, when you do a heel versus heel match, it draws no money. It gets no crowd reaction because nobody wants to be forced to cheer for the bad guy. Now, what some people would say is, well, that's how I feel. I feel like there's no one here to cheer for. But I think that with the context given on any episode, we could flip back and forth. So it makes it fun, at least for me. If they were outright was saying Rhaenyra is terrible and Rhaenyra is evil all the time and, avoiding whitewashing, as people would say, it would make for a pretty boring television show, in my opinion. I think the idea is that the creators are trying to get you to look a little bit deeper. George does this exact same thing. The entire Book of Fire and Blood is a warning about how monarchy is not actually a good idea. And people miss that. So, like, you don't need everything spelled out. This is one of the things that Steven Erikson does extraordinarily well. Steven Erikson will propose a question and not answer it in his books, and it drives some people absolutely mad. Like, they're like, he really should have, addressed this. And it's like, well, he's trying to get you to address it through the characters, So, I don't know. Media literacy is in the dumpster. CC says, absolutely, I will defend Daemon to anyone. See, it's fun. He murdered his wife, but it's fun. I mean, hell, people buy OJ jerseys still. Allegedly. Don't sue me, OJ. Guards in the show are like the dudes on Jerry Springer. They aren't really trying to break up the fights. Hey, you got to sell the pay-per-view. All right. Astrid says, I think that's the beauty of the show, actually. The characters are not black or white. Yeah, and it goes way further than that, too. Because, like, we all throw around, like, oh, these characters are gray and that and that. But, like, I think the point is to look at the system around the characters. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at how this works in a monarchy and the keeping the bloodline pure. Like, it's clearly a critique of these things. But people kind of laser in on what side to play. That's one of the people who shows up to a Super Bowl party asking which team we are rooting for based off their uniforms. The greens versus blacks dynamic works for me. and that's the thing. I'm not telling you not to pick sides. Pick sides and have fun with it. But some people take it way too far. Touch my camera through the fence. Fever would cheer for the bad guy. Oonga boonga. Jimmy would make a good hand. Yeah, I think until it went to my head and then I try to go too far and end up getting whacked. I don't even think Alicent is evil, just sadly being paranoid and petty. And she is self-righteous. Like, Rhaenyra lied to her. And it's kind of a perfect storm because her dad's like warning her about the secession like issues that they're going to face. And it's just like a perfect storm. Like, she definitely put that in line with what her dad was warning her about and let that fuel her righteous fire to like do the right thing. Which I know people like that. Philip says the positive of this is that I think the tribalism could lead to House of the Dragon eventually having higher viewership than Game of Thrones, assuming the writing quality keeps up. Yes, and for those who are like saying like Rhaenyra needs to get a little bit of dirt on her hands, or at least let us know that she has dirt on her hands if people can't read subtext. But I think that, Philip, you're right. I think this is what they're going to play with. They're going to play with week to week bouncing back and forth, and it's going to be a pretty fine balance to get people not discouraged, right? But for the casual viewer, it's going to be a good water cooler discussion to say, do you like Alicent or do you like Rhaenyra? Someone commented on the bend the knee reaction. It was like, I know who I'm for, Team Green, and Rhaenyra's a whore. It's like, God damn, relax. Oh yes, you have the same glass. This is the Ome Gang. I don't know. It's like that beer that they released for the Game of Thrones season 8. Which everyone shits on season 8, but guys, we got a dope soundtrack and a lot of merch. I was pretty excited. Baker and Erikson do that well with letting the reader think and not spell everything out. Yeah, I would agree that Baker does that with his like plot and lore, but he is pretty heavy-handed with his opinion on philosophy. is very heavy-handed in those. But you could actually argue that Erickson is heavy-handed with some of his themes as well. I think the book House of Chains has the word chains like 100 times or something. Like, it's pretty clear what he's getting at. So, no one's perfect. But yeah, I would agree that Baker definitely is willing to let you drown, if you will, especially towards the end of the second series. Oh my God. Alicent is not the queen of Westeros. She's the queen of pettiness. Get him. Luke Valerian is the only person. So a piss yellow cloak for you, Kev, a la Tomo Sevens. Tomo Sevens, the mole inside River Run. Read Feast for Crows again if you missed it. I'm team anyone who hates Crispy Cole. He's just the worst, but his actors are great at doing it. Yeah, man, what a good range. We talked about range from a lot of different actors, but you got to give it to Crispy Cole. White Knight, and I would call him an incel, but he got lucky with Rhaenyra. He's White Knight, and the next episode he's dropping the see you next Tuesday. I mean, Crispy, come on, dude. Relax. She was a whore of Viserys. Many men have been her. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so episode was fantastic. Also, I thought that the makeup effects for Aemon's eye, where it looked like football laces, absolutely brutal. And then when they were stitching Rhaenyra's arm from the dagger cut, I don't get squeamish with movies. In life, if you start bleeding, I get creeped out. Like, I'll get lightheaded. But I got really squeamish whenever they were stitching up her arm for some reason. So excellent job on the effects. I'm sure that offended some people, the people who do not like blood, guts, and butts in their fantasy shows, which always bewilders me when people complain about those things while watching HBO, as if HBO hasn't been doing that for 30, 40 years. But I digress. This episode was the best episode of the show for me. I feel even more confident about that after talking with you all. And I'm glad I got the opportunity to come on here on live and see your all's reaction. I hope that maybe I provided some context for dragon bonding. It was the topic that I was most excited to talk about tonight because I saw so many people worrying about what Sea Smoke would do and if they're going to ruin dragon bonding in the show, when in reality, the text does not support a hardcore system for dragon bonding. And I think people are just like hearing again, they hear someone on a video make that critique, or they read a comment on Reddit, and then people just like regurgitate it. And you always have to wonder, like, have these people read the books? Like, I always wonder that whenever they say these things. Like, there's literally a search engine where you can search bond, like any word in A Song of Ice and Fire. You can do every book and novella, everything. Do the research yourself. That's part of why this series is awesome. So I think that pretty much covers it. I am very, very excited for the last 3 episodes. I know the director for episode 9 is the one that did 4, and 4 is now my second favorite episode, and I'm really, really excited to see what they do. We know that 9 is usually the actual climax of a season in Westeros, and 10 kind of being the fallout and setup for the next season. We don't know if House of the Dragon is going to follow that formula, but that is how it was in Game of Thrones. So we could be seeing some really epic stuff. I think 8 most likely will have a pretty big cliffhanger. And I'm excited to see the kids all grown up. Bridget says, I miss direwolves. Well, the good news is, Bridget, is that I don't know if we'll get direwolves, but I think you're going to see the Starks in season 2 and 3. And I do think that for the people who are missing the scope of Westeros and all the houses, I said this on Bend the Knee, I do believe that you're going to see the show get expanded out in the second season. And I think that you're going to be happy to see some familiar banners coming around. Obviously, we saw them swearing fealty at the beginning of the season, but I mean real role players. And I think that's something that might change from the books to the show, but we'll have to see where the timeline goes, if they bring in people earlier than expected. I can't wait either. I cannot wait. I think 8's going to be great. And even if, honestly, don't be surprised if 8 is a dialogue heavy episode and we don't get as much stuff, and then 9 and 10 are bangers. That is absolutely possible. Cause like, I don't know how you top 7 so fast. They might, but I'd be surprised because 7 was so good. I would put 7 up there with many of the high rating episodes of Game of Thrones, to be honest. So I'll be back next week with a reaction for episode 8. If you are new here, think about subscribing. Also, please hit the like button if you're here checking this out. And if you're watching this after fact, I appreciate you checking this out. I hope this was still enjoyable to watch, not live. And drop a comment down below and tell me what you think. And I would also love to see what people think they're going to do with Sea Smoke. Let's get some discussion around there and see what's going to happen. So I appreciate you all so much. Go subscribe to Bend the Knee, where you can catch me. That is the official Song of Ice and Fire podcast that I am a part of. And I co-host that with my friend Matt, who has brought me on, and we get to talk A Song of Ice and Fire every single week. And when House of the Dragon wraps up, we're going to be doing a reread of Storm of Swords. We're a couple chapters in, so it's a great time to go over there and subscribe, because once the season concludes, we're going to do some digging into the books, and that's going to be amazing. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. Cheers. I love you, and I will see you again next week for a live, and I'll put out a review this weekend, most likely, probably for Lives of Locke Lamora. So I hope y'all have a great night and a good rest of the week. And until I say next time, be good, be safe, and remember to always keep turning the page.